There is a specific deafening kind of silence that rings in your ears when you finally realize the truth. It is the silence that falls when you understand that the child you bled to raise, the boy whose future you built with your bare hands, is physically disgusted by the smell of motor oil and sweat deeply embedded in your skin. I am 64 years old. My name is Arthur. For 40 years, my world has been defined by the heavy scent of gasoline, the metallic clink of ratchets, and the stubborn grime that settles into the calluses of my palms. I own a dimly lit auto repair shop on the gritty south side of the city. I never minded the dirt. Every achy joint and every late night under a broken-down sedan was a down payment on my son's future. Sitting in the center bay of my shop under the flickering glare of a fluorescent bulb is a 1968 Ford Mustang. The chassis is stripped bare, its exposed metal cold to the touch. I have been restoring it for the past 3 years. I remember tracking down the original leather for the bucket seats, breathing in that rich, earthy smell, imagining Julian sitting behind the wheel. The car was meant to be a surprise gift for his 30th birthday, a symbol of everything we endured together since his mother passed away. I pour myself a cup of black coffee from the break room thermos. It tastes bitterly of burnt grounds, but I drink it anyway, staring at the Mustang's gleaming chrome bumper. The reflection staring back is an old man in faded blue coveralls, stooped under the weight of quiet sacrifices. My son Julian did not inherit my calluses. He was destined for soaring glass towers and pristine white drafting tables. He is a brilliant architect, a man whose mind works in elegant angles. I made sure of it. When the other neighborhood boys were getting into trouble, I was working double shifts, inhaling exhaust fumes, just to afford the exorbitant tuition for his preparatory school and later his Ivy League degree. I wanted his hands to hold premium fountain pens, not heavy steel wrenches. He built a life so pristine, so far removed from the grit of my world, that sometimes looking at him felt like looking at a stranger wearing my son's face. The chasm between us opened slowly, disguised as the natural progression of a successful life. Julian was preparing to launch his own high-end architectural design firm. It was a monumental achievement, the culmination of everything we dreamed of during those long nights, eating cheap boxed macaroni and cheese. I was bursting with a pride so profound it physically ached in my chest. Yet underneath that swelling pride, a cold, dark current of unease had begun to flow. It lived in subtle, fleeting moments. The way his eyes would dart around my cluttered living room when he visited, as if the worn fabric of the sofa offended him. Last week, he stopped by the garage. He stepped out of his sleek imported sedan wearing a tailored charcoal suit that probably cost more than my entire tool collection. The air around him smelled of crisp, expensive cologne, sharply cutting through the familiar scent of old rubber in my shop. I wiped my hands on an old red rag, trying to scrub away the grease. "Julian, my boy, you look like $1,000,000, I smiled, reaching out to grasp his shoulder. He stepped back just a fraction of an inch, but enough for me to feel the empty air between us. "Hey, Dad. I can't stay long. I just needed to drop off the insurance paperwork for the new office." His eyes were fixed on the oily smudge on my index finger. "Of course. Leave it on the desk." I lowered my hand to my side. "Things are moving fast, Dad. The launch party is next Friday. The guest list is entirely booked with city officials and elite developers." He placed the pristine white envelope on my cluttered desk. "I wouldn't miss it for the world," I said, my chest puffing out slightly. "I'll take my best suit to the dry cleaners tomorrow." Julian shifted his weight. The leather of his expensive Italian shoes creaked softly against the stained concrete floor. He reached out and briefly squeezed my forearm, a stiff, rehearsed gesture of affection.
Right.
The suit. "Look, I really have to run, Dad. I'll call you later this week." He turned and walked back to his car. I stood in the doorway, watching him leave. As he opened the driver's door, I saw him reach into the center console. He pulled out a foil-wrapped packet. A wet wipe. He tore it open with a sharp, crisp sound that echoed across the quiet street. Slowly, meticulously, he wiped the hand that had just touched my arm, his face twisted in a faint, undeniable grimace of disgust. He scrubbed until his skin was raw, then tossed the crumpled wipe into a nearby trash can. I stood there for a very long time. The evening air turned chilly, biting through my thin cotton shirt, but the cold I felt was entirely internal. I walked over to the trash can and looked down at the crumpled white tissue, stained with a faint, ghostly smudge of my life's work. My grease. My sacrifice. That little piece of damp cloth held the crushing weight of 1,000 unspoken words. I had spent 4 decades breaking my back so my son could climb to the top of the world. Now that he had reached the summit, he was desperate to wash away the dirt of the ladder. I went back inside the quiet shop and turned off the harsh overhead lights, leaving only the soft amber glow of my desk lamp. The shadows stretched long and twisted across the concrete floor, creeping up the tires of the unfinished Mustang. I ran my rough, calloused hand over the smooth curve of the car's front fender. The metal felt ice cold. I told myself I was overreacting. I convinced myself that next Friday at the grand launch, Julian would stand proudly beside me and introduce me to his new world. But deep down, in the quiet, aching hollow of my chest, the cold current of unease had already begun to freeze over. I didn't know it yet, but that crumpled wet wipe in the trash can was not just a gesture of disgust. It was the prologue to a betrayal that would burn my entire world to the ground. The ghost of that crumpled wet wipe haunted me long after the garage doors were pulled down. It was a tiny, damp specter of the growing distance between the greasy floor I stood upon and the sterile world my son was entering. But the true architect of this new frozen divide was not just Julian's ambition, it was his wife, Victoria. Victoria was the director of a contemporary art gallery in the financial district. She possessed a flawless, chilling kind of elegance, moving through life like she was walking through a museum exhibit, careful not to touch anything too common. She never raised her voice. She never explicitly insulted my worn steel-toe boots or my heavily calloused hands. Instead, she wielded a weapon much sharper and far more effective, lethal, condescending politeness. I felt the full edge of that blade during my first Christmas dinner at their new penthouse. The apartment was a vast expanse of stark white walls, reflective chrome fixtures, and sharp glass tables. It smelled strongly of truffle oil, seared scallops, and something faintly floral that reminded me of a high-end luxury boutique. I sat at the long dining table, feeling like a stray dog that had wandered into a pristine surgical ward. The heavy silver cutlery clinked intimidatingly against bone-white porcelain plates, a sharp, crystalline sound that mocked the thick ceramic mugs I used at home. The stiff linen napkin felt unnervingly rigid and unfamiliar across my lap, heavy with professional starch. The main course was a complex miniature dish involving roasted quail and some sort of dark reduction sauce. I picked up a small, strangely shaped fork, trying to navigate the tiny bones. My thick fingers, permanently darkened by decades of ingrained motor grease no matter how hard I scrubbed, fumbled awkwardly. A small piece of meat slipped from the silver prongs. It hit the edge of my plate and splashed a single, dark brown drop of gravy onto the immaculate snow-white tablecloth. The silence that followed was louder than a dropped steel wrench in my empty shop. "Oh, Arthur," Victoria did not gasp. She did not frown. She simply smiled, that thin, heavily practiced smile she reserved for difficult clients. She reached across the table. Her perfectly manicured hand, radiating the scent of expensive lavender moisturizer, gently pushed my fingers away from the utensil. "Let me show you. The oyster fork is really only for the appetizers. We use the larger silver for the game meats. It is much easier to manage." It was not an act of kindness. It was a calculated eviction. The soft, gentle correction was a glowing neon sign pointing out exactly where I belonged, and it was nowhere near her imported porcelain. I looked across the table, seeking a lifeline from the boy I raised. Julian did not look up from his crystal wine glass. He kept his eyes locked on the deep red liquid, his jaw muscles tight and flexing. "Just let her help you, Dad. It is fine." He did not sound angry. He sounded profoundly embarrassed. My son was blushing with shame, not for his wife's blatant rudeness, but for my clumsy, unrefined hands. The very hands that had rebuilt countless shattered engines just to pay for the crystal glass he was currently hiding behind. I swallowed the dry, tasteless piece of meat, washing it down with a long sip of ice water. I smiled and nodded, retreating into the quiet armor of endurance. That was my job as a father. To endure the sharp edges of his new life so he could continue to fly without drag. That same misguided dedication was why 3 months prior I had pledged the entirety of my life's work to his dream. Julian had come to my shop carrying a thick leather-bound portfolio. He needed a massive line of credit to secure a prime lease in a prestigious downtown high-rise and to purchase state-of-the-art drafting equipment for his new firm. The bank, however, saw a young architect with grand visions and absolutely no collateral. They demanded a guarantor with solid, tangible assets. I had my auto shop. The cinder block building, the heavy hydraulic lifts, and the dusty lot it sat on were completely paid off. It was my only safety net, the sum total of 40 years of breathing in toxic exhaust fumes and breaking my back under heavy steel chassis. We sat in my cramped, dusty office. The low hum of the air compressor vibrated through the worn floorboards beneath our feet.
It is just a formality, Dad.
Julian tapped the thick stack of legal papers with a clean, unblemished fingernail. The firm will be aggressively profitable within 6 months. The contracts are practically lined up. You will never even hear from the loan officer. I ran my thumb over the heavy bond paper. The ink felt permanent, a binding chain disguised as an opportunity. The numbers were staggering. A $300,000 commercial guarantee. If he failed, the bank would seize the shop. They would take the concrete under my feet and the tools off my walls. But as I looked up into Julian's eyes, I saw the same eager, ambitious boy who used to build towering cities out of wooden blocks on my living room rug. Your dream is my dream, Julian. I pressed the heavy steel pen hard into the paper, signing my name on the dotted line. He smiled then. It was a genuine, blinding smile that reached his eyes, momentarily erasing the sterile polish of the corporate architect and leaving only my son. He hugged me tightly, the scent of his crisp cologne mixing heavily with the stale air of my office. For a brief, fleeting moment, the cold chasm between our worlds seemed to close. I believed that my massive sacrifice had finally secured my permanent, respected place in his future. Now, sitting alone in the deep quiet of my modest living room, that hug felt like a fabricated memory from a different lifetime. The rhythmic, heavy ticking of the old grandfather clock echoed off the faded floral wallpaper, a relentless reminder of the quiet isolation settling over my days. I walked over to the wooden mantel and picked up the framed photograph of my late wife, Martha. The glass was freezing against my fingertips. She was smiling brightly in the photo, wearing a simple cotton dress, her hair blown back by the wind at a local park. "He is flying so high, Martha," I whispered to the empty room, my voice cracking just a fraction. "But the air up there is so cold." I carefully set the silver frame back down, gently wiping a tiny speck of dust from the wooden edge. I was willing to freeze in that cold air. I was willing to endure Victoria's condescending smiles and Julian's embarrassed silences for the rest of my days. I just wanted to stand in the back of the room and watch him succeed. I had my only dark suit, freshly pressed, hanging on the closet door, carefully wrapped in thin plastic. I was patiently counting down the days to his grand launch party, completely foolishly unaware that the invitation I was waiting for had already been quietly burned to ash. The thin plastic wrapper crinkling over my freshly pressed charcoal suit was the only sound in my bedroom that Friday evening. I had waited for this specific night with the quiet, desperate patience of a man hoping to finally see the harvest after a 40-year drought. The harsh scent of cheap dry cleaning fluid filled the small room, masking the usual comforting smell of my old pine furniture. I carefully pulled the plastic away, letting the heavy fabric settle onto my bed. It was not a designer label. It was an off-the-rack piece I had bought 6 years ago for a funeral, but it was clean, and I had spent an hour polishing my worn black dress shoes until they caught the dim light of my bedside lamp. On the worn wooden dresser sat a massive, elaborate floral arrangement. I had driven across town to a high-end boutique florist that morning, handing over $200 in crumpled bills. It was a sprawling display of pristine white orchids and silver-painted branches housed in a heavy ceramic vase. The florist told me it looked modern and architectural. I knew Julian would appreciate the clean lines. The sweet, heavy fragrance of the orchids hung thickly in the air, sweet enough to almost taste at the back of my throat. I stood before my cracked mirror, carefully adjusting my tie. My broad, thick neck strained against the stiff collar. My knuckles, permanently stained with dark engine oil, protruded awkwardly from the crisp white cuffs. I looked like exactly what I was, a mechanic playing dress-up. But tonight I was just a proud father. My old flip phone vibrated violently against the wood of the dresser, rattling the heavy ceramic vase. I smiled, reaching for it. I assumed it was Julian, calling to make sure I had the correct address for the downtown gallery where the launch was being held. The caller ID read Victoria. I flipped the phone open, bringing the cold plastic to my ear. Victoria, I am just putting my tie on. The orchids look beautiful, by the way. I'm leaving in 10 minutes. Arthur. Her voice was smooth, perfectly modulated, and completely devoid of warmth. It sounded like ice water pouring over polished marble. I am so glad I caught you before you made the trip. I stopped adjusting my tie. The fabric suddenly felt like a noose. Caught me? Is the party delayed? No, everything is perfectly on schedule. I could hear the faint, elegant clinking of champagne flutes in the background, layered over a soft jazz melody. Arthur, we need to clarify the nature of tonight's event. This is a highly exclusive networking gala. We have top-tier developers, venture capitalists, and the mayor's cultural liaison arriving shortly. I understand, I said slowly, the cold current of unease from the garage suddenly turning into a freezing tidal wave. I will stay out of the way. I just want to see him. You are not understanding me, Arthur. She let out a soft, patronizing sigh. Julian is launching a luxury brand. His clientele expects a certain aesthetic, Having a mechanic wandering around in an old suit, smelling like a garage, completely undermines the brand positioning we have worked so hard to establish. It sends the wrong message to the investors. The words hit me like a physical blow to the sternum. I forgot how to breathe. The room spun slightly. I gripped the edge of the wooden dresser, the sharp corner pressing painfully into my palm. Banned. I was banned from my own son's triumph because my existence was a liability to his brand. Let me speak to Julian. My voice was a hollow, echoing rasp. It did not sound like me. There was a muffled, shuffling sound. The jazz music swelled for a second before a hand covered the receiver. Then Julian's voice came through. It was hushed, rushed, and trembling with a cowardly sort of anxiety. Dad. Hey. Listen, Victoria is right. It is completely crazy here tonight. It is strictly business. Julian, I stared at my own reflection in the cracked mirror. The tired eyes. The graying hair. I guaranteed the loan for that business. I paid for the education that built it. Am I not good enough to stand in the room? Do not do this, Dad. Do not make me feel guilty tonight. He sounded exasperated, as if I were a child throwing a tantrum in a grocery store. It is just optics. You would hate it anyway. Nobody here talks about cars or sports. We will do a private dinner, just the three of us, next Tuesday. I promise. He was agreeing with her. My boy, the child I had carried on my shoulders so he could touch the ceiling, was locking the door of his glass tower, terrified his wealthy friends might see the dirty hands that built it. Before I could form a single word in response, the phone was snatched back. Victoria's crisp, commanding tone returned, cutting through my paralysis. So we are agreed. We will see you next week, Arthur. Oh, and before I forget, the contractors are demanding the final liquidity injection tomorrow morning. We need you to transfer the remaining $100,000 from your equity line by 10 o'clock sharp. Julian's assistant will email you the routing numbers. Have a quiet night. The line went dead. A sharp, monotonous dial tone filled my quiet bedroom. I did not throw the phone. I did not scream. I slowly lowered my arm, placing the device on the dresser next to the pristine white orchids. The silence in the house was absolute, heavy, and suffocating. My hands began to tremble, a violent, uncontrollable shaking that started in my fingertips and spread to my shoulders. It was not the heat of rage. It was a deep, tearing pain, a visceral severing of an invisible cord that had anchored my soul for 30 years. I reached up and slowly unknotted my tie, pulling it away from my throat. I unbuttoned the stiff white shirt, sliding the heavy charcoal jacket off my broad shoulders. I let the garments fall to the floor in a wrinkled heap right next to my polished shoes. I was not a father to them. I was never meant to be a guest at their table. I was just a walking, breathing line of credit waiting to be drained dry. I did not sleep that night. I could not bear the suffocating silence of my empty house. Instead, I drove back to the auto shop. It was the only place left in the world that still felt completely, undeniably mine. The heavy steel door rolled down with a loud metallic crash, sealing me inside the freezing, cavernous space. The air was thick with the sharp, acidic scent of brake fluid and damp concrete. I walked past the customer waiting area, past the heavy red toolboxes, and stopped in front of the 1968 Mustang. I sank onto a battered wooden stool. The garage was pitch black, illuminated only by the faint orange bleed of the street lamps filtering through the grimy high windows. I reached out and rested my palm flat against the cold, unpainted hood of the car. The steel sapped the warmth right out of my skin. I had poured my soul into this machine. I had poured my soul into my son. Both were empty shells sitting in the dark. A single heavy tear broke loose from my lashes. It slid down the deep creases of my weathered cheek, hot and stinging, before falling. It hit the bare metal of the Mustang's hood with a soft, sharp tap. I sat there, shivering in my thin undershirt, entirely consumed by the crushing weight of my own irrelevance. I was not a father. I was just a discarded stepping stone. At 2 a.m, the heavy side door rattled loudly against its hinges. A key turned in the rusted lock. The door swung open, letting in a bitter gust of autumn wind. Marcus stepped into the shadows. He was a semi-retired attorney, my oldest friend, and a man whose veins ran with equal parts cheap bourbon and profound cynicism. He wore a rumpled trench coat that smelled faintly of old tobacco and damp wool. He didn't ask why I was sitting alone in the dark. He just walked over to my workbench, the heavy soles of his boots scraping against the concrete floor, and set down 2 glass bottles of dark stout. The glass clinked sharply in the quiet room. "I saw your truck parked outside, Artie." Marcus pulled out a metal opener and popped the metal caps. He handed me a bottle. Condensation froze against my fingers. "You are supposed to be sipping champagne with the elites tonight. Why are you hiding in a freezing garage?" I took a slow sip of the stout. The dark, bitter liquid burned the back of my throat. I looked down at my grease-stained hands. "They did not want me there, Marcus. Victoria said I would ruin the brand." Marcus stopped mid-drink. The glass bottle hovered near his mouth. He slowly lowered it to the workbench. The cynical amusement vanished from his lined face, replaced by a cold, predatory sharpness. He did not offer pity. Pity was a useless currency between old friends. "She asked for the final 100,000 by tomorrow morning at 10, I added, my voice barely a whisper in the large room. "They need liquidity for the contractors."
Artie!
Marcus leaned heavily against the tall metal tool cabinet. He folded his arms across his chest. "Open the floor safe. Bring me the master guarantee agreement. It is a standard commercial pledge, Mark. I signed it 3 months ago. Nothing Victoria touches is standard. Bring it." I walked to the cramped back office and spun the dial on the heavy iron floor safe. The metal hinges groaned. I pulled out the thick, leather-bound folder and carried it back to the workbench. I switched on the small overhead halogen lamp. The sudden, blinding white light flooded the documents. Marcus pulled a pair of scratched reading glasses from his coat pocket. The thick paper rustled loudly in the quiet shop as he flipped through the dense legal jargon, his finger tracing the tiny print. 10 minutes passed. The only sound was the rhythmic ticking of the shop's old wall clock and the steady hum of the halogen bulb. Then Marcus stopped. He tapped his index finger hard against a paragraph buried deep on page 17. "I knew it," Marcus muttered, his jaw tight. "Artie, do you know what they are actually using your equity line for? Leasing the office. Buying drafting software. Hiring junior architects." Marcus turned the document around, sliding it across the greasy table. "Look at the disbursement annex. They registered the firm as an LLC holding company. 30% of the initial draw didn't go to office equipment. It went to a corporate lease on a luxury penthouse. Victoria's name is listed as the primary resident. Another 50,000 was allocated for a corporate vehicle, a high-end imported SUV. They are bleeding your shop dry to fund a millionaire's lifestyle they haven't earned yet. If the business folds tomorrow, they keep the leased assets under bankruptcy protection and the bank seizes this garage." I stared at the black ink. The tiny letters blurred together under the harsh light. They were not building a future. They were constructing a glittering, hollow illusion, and they had chained my neck to the foundational pillars. The deep, agonizing sorrow that had paralyzed me all evening suddenly evaporated. The freezing despair in my chest hardened into something entirely different. It was a terrifying absolute calmness. It was the sharp, crystalline clarity of a man who realizes he is standing in a burning house and finally decides to just walk out the front door. "Can I stop the transfer tomorrow?" I asked. My voice was completely steady. It surprised even me. Marcus smiled. It was a grim, wolfish expression. "It is a revolving credit facility, Artie. The bank requires your explicit verbal authorization for any draw over $50,000. But we can do one better. Look at Clause 4B. To appease the underwriters, Julian listed you as a senior advisory board member of the LLC. As a guarantor and board member, if you declare a material loss of faith in executive management, you can unilaterally freeze the credit line and initiate a revocation of the guarantee." I looked away from the paperwork and stared out the grimy window at the dark, empty street. For 40 years I had bent my back, lowered my eyes, and offered every ounce of my blood to make Julian's life easier. I had endured the disrespect, the shame, and the quiet erasure of my own dignity. I thought love meant endlessly giving. I was wrong. Sometimes the most profound act of love is allowing the structure to collapse so they have to learn how to rebuild it themselves. "Draft the revocation notice, Marcus," I said, picking up the cold bottle of stout. "I will call the bank manager at 9 in the morning." "It will trigger an immediate default on their lease," Marcus warned quietly, taking his glasses off. "They will lose the office. They will lose everything." I looked back at the unfinished, rusted steel of the Mustang.
I know.
I took a long final drink of the bitter beer. It is time to stop being an ATM with a heartbeat. The ticking of the wall clock seemed to grow louder, echoing in the cavernous garage. The hours stretched thin and tight like a steel wire about to snap. Morning was coming. The 10 o'clock deadline was rapidly approaching, and the glittering glass tower my son had built was about to meet the cold, hard reality of the pavement. My ancient flip phone vibrated violently against the metal workbench, dancing across a thin sheen of spilled motor oil. The harsh electronic buzzing cut through the low rumble of the shop's air compressor. It was 10:15 on a Monday morning. Since I had made the call to Sarah at the commercial bank precisely at 9, initiating the freeze on the credit line, the phone had rung exactly 14 times. All 14 calls were from Victoria. I did not answer. I simply let it go to voicemail, listening to the tiny tinny speaker project her unraveling composure into the dusty air of my garage. The first message had been dripping with artificial sweetness, practically radiating the scent of her expensive lavender lotion through the speaker. "Arthur dear, there seems to be a tiny glitch with the bank. Call me back." By the fifth call, the honey had frozen into jagged ice. "Arthur, this is completely unacceptable. Answer your phone immediately." The 14th message, however, was pure, unadulterated panic. The elegant gallery director was gone, replaced by a shrill, breathless stranger. "Arthur, the bank is rejecting our wire transfer to the property management group. Call them right now and fix this. The grace period ends in 48 hours. I deleted the messages one by one. I picked up a heavy drop-forged steel wrench, wrapping my calloused fingers around the handle. The metal was freezing cold and deeply satisfying to hold. It felt like reality. A sudden, violent screech of rubber on asphalt shattered the quiet afternoon. A sleek black imported SUV, the exact model listed in the hidden disbursement annex Marcus had found, jumped the curb and slammed into park just inches from my open bay doors. The driver's side door flew open with such force it bounced off its hinges. Julian stormed into the garage. The crisp, tailored suit he had worn last week was replaced by a wrinkled dress shirt, dark and damp with sweat at the collar. His chest heaved. His expensive citrus cologne collided violently with the thick, suffocating smell of hot brake dust and stale gasoline, creating a nauseating mixture in the air.
What did you do?
Julian's voice cracked, echoing loudly off the cinderblock walls. He didn't say hello. He didn't ask how I was doing. I did not look up immediately. I took a dark red shop rag and began slowly polishing the teeth of the steel wrench. "Good afternoon, Julian. How was the launch party? I heard it was a very exclusive affair." "Dad, stop playing games." He marched toward me, his Italian leather shoes leaving sharp, desperate footprints in the sawdust scattered across the floor. The commercial manager at First National just called me. She said you froze the credit line. She said you filed a formal revocation of the guarantee based on a loss of faith. Clause 4B, I stated mildly, finally raising my eyes to meet his. I set the wrench down. The heavy metal produced a dull, final thud against the scarred wood of the workbench. I exercised my right as a senior advisory board member. Julian dragged both hands through his perfectly styled hair, completely ruining it. You don't even know what that means. You're a mechanic, Dad. You can't just push a button and destroy a corporate entity because your feelings got hurt over a cocktail party. The air in the garage grew incredibly still. The only sound was the distant, muffled hum of traffic from the interstate. My feelings, I asked softly. The calmness inside my chest was absolute, an icy glacier that had completely frozen over my grief. This is not about my hurt feelings, Julian. This is a strictly business decision. I believe that is the terminology Victoria prefers. We have payroll. We have subcontractors. A bead of sweat dripped down his pale temple. If the property group doesn't get the wire by Wednesday, they lock the doors. We lose the deposit, the servers, everything. You are bankrupting your own son. I reached into the deep front pocket of my coveralls and pulled out a folded copy of the disbursement annex Marcus had highlighted. I tossed it onto the greasy workbench. It landed right next to a dark puddle of engine oil. I am bankrupting an illusion, I corrected him, my voice flat and completely devoid of any warmth. You allocated $50,000 of the operational draw for that luxury SUV sitting in my driveway. You funneled 30% of the business capital to lease a penthouse strictly under your wife's name. You used my blood and sweat, the equity of this dirty garage you are so ashamed of, to play pretend in a world you cannot actually afford. Julian stared down at the crumpled paper. The color instantly drained from his face, leaving his skin a pale, sickly gray. His mouth opened, but no words came out. The sophisticated Ivy League corporate architect vanished, replaced by a terrified little boy caught stealing from a cash register. It was Victoria's idea, he stammered weakly, his voice barely a hollow whisper. She said we needed the aesthetic to attract high-net-worth clients. It's an investment in the brand, Dad. You have to understand how this tier of the industry works. I understand exactly how it works. I stepped closer to him. He flinched backward, a tiny instinctual movement that broke my heart a final irreversible time. I understand that a solid structure requires a strong foundation. You built a glass castle on a swamp of debt and deceit, and you chained my neck to the floorboards. Dad, please. His eyes darted frantically around the shop, desperate for an escape route, a loophole that did not exist. I'll sell the car. We'll downgrade the apartment. Just call the bank. Lift the freeze. If you don't, it is over. My career is over. I picked up the red shop rag from the table. I held it out to him. It was stained black with years of hard, honest labor, rough to the touch and smelling of chemicals. Wipe your face, Julian. You are sweating, I said, my tone perfectly even. He stared at the dirty rag. I watched the ingrained disgust battle with his sheer, overwhelming panic. He didn't take it. Even now, facing absolute financial ruin, he could not bear the thought of my grease touching his skin. It was the perfect inverse of that pristine white wet wipe he had used to scrub me away just a few weeks prior. I am not calling the bank, I told him, slowly withdrawing my hand. My signature guaranteed a business, not a lifestyle. You excluded me from your success because I didn't fit the aesthetic. I am simply excluding myself from your financial collapse. You're punishing me, he choked out, a raw, ugly sound tearing from his throat. I am releasing you, I replied quietly. I turned my back to him and walked over to the rusted chassis of the 1968 Mustang. I picked up a piece of heavy grit sandpaper. You are an independent, elite architect now. It is time you learn how to balance a ledger without a mechanic underwriting your mistakes. The silence stretched out, sharp and suffocating. I did not look back. I listened as his rapid, panicked breathing slowly hitched into a stifled, pathetic sob. He stood there for another full minute, a broken man standing in the ruins of his own arrogance. Then the heavy rubber soles of his shoes dragged across the concrete. The SUV door slammed shut. The engine roared to life and the tires squealed wildly as he fled the dusty lot. I dragged the rough sandpaper across the Mustang's cold steel, the harsh scraping noise filling the empty garage. The illusion was finally shattered, but the true fallout of Julian's ruined world was only just beginning. 3 months is a short time to build a life, but an absolute eternity when you are forced to watch one collapse. Winter arrived early that year, bringing a bitter frost that coated the garage windows in thick layers of opaque ice. Inside the shop, the industrial heater hummed a rattling tune, smelling faintly of burning dust. The news of Julian's bankruptcy did not come as a sudden shock. It arrived in quiet, agonizing waves. Marcus brought me the legal filings over cheap coffee. The luxury architectural firm folded 12 days after the credit line was frozen. The property management group locked the heavy glass doors of the high-rise. Then came the inevitable divorce. Victoria, ever the ruthless pragmatist, filed the legal papers the moment the corporate accounts were seized. She left the penthouse, stripping it bare of designer luggage, expensive jewelry, and whatever cash was left. She vanished back into the sterile art galleries, leaving Julian standing entirely alone in the wreckage of a life he never actually owned. I didn't reach out. I let the silence stretch across the freezing months, pacing the concrete floors, knowing the foundation had to be completely cleared of rubble before anything new could be built. It was a late Tuesday afternoon in January when the heavy steel side door of the shop creaked open. A freezing gust of wind rushed in, scattering sawdust across the concrete. I looked up from the stripped engine block of the Mustang, my hands coated in dark motor grease. Julian stood in the doorway. The physical transformation was startling. The crisp designer suits were gone, replaced by a faded flannel shirt, a heavy canvas work jacket, and scuffed boots that had actually seen a real construction site. He looked exhausted. His cheeks were hollowed out and his eyes were ringed with dark shadows. Yet stripped of his expensive aesthetic, he looked entirely real. He didn't say a single word. He walked slowly across the shop, his rubber soles thudding softly. He stopped at the workbench, staring down at the disassembled carburetor I was struggling to align. He didn't ask for a loan. He didn't offer a dramatic apology to ease his own guilt. He simply reached out, his bare hands grasping a heavy steel socket wrench. The cold metal clinked sharply as he locked it into place. "Hold the mounting bracket steady, Dad," he instructed quietly, his voice raspy from the biting cold. I didn't argue. I gripped the freezing steel bracket, feeling the icy bite of the metal against my thick calluses. Julian leaned over the engine bay. The suffocating scent of his expensive cologne was gone, replaced by the honest, grounding smell of cold wind, cheap drip coffee, and basic laundry soap. He tightened the bolts with slow, deliberate force. We worked in total heavy silence for 3 solid hours. The rhythmic clicking of the metal ratchets replaced the terrible echoing void that had existed between us for so long. He didn't flinch when the dark engine grease stained his knuckles. He didn't look around for a wet wipe. When we finished the complex engine assembly, he simply wiped his dirty, blackened hands across the thighs of his denim jeans, a gesture so profoundly ordinary it made my chest ache with a sudden, overwhelming warmth. "I'm drafting basic blueprints for a small residential contractor out in the suburbs," Julian said, his eyes fixed on a greasy shop rag. "It's hourly pay. Designing small starter homes. Porches. Kitchen expansions. It is not glamorous." I picked up a clean rag, wiping the oil from my palms. "It is honest work," I replied softly. "Honest work builds strong houses." He nodded slowly, staring at the thick grime wedged under his fingernails. "I met someone, Dad. A few weeks ago. She teaches preschool near my cramped apartment." He finally looked up, meeting my gaze. There was a raw, undeniable humility shining in his tired eye. "Her name is Clara. She drives an old sedan that makes a terrible grinding noise when it shifts. I told her my dad was a master mechanic. I asked if she wanted to bring it by the shop. A warm, steady feeling began to thaw the remaining ice inside my chest. Tell Clara to bring it in on Sunday morning. I will take a look at the transmission." Clara came that Sunday. She was a quiet woman with kind, crinkling eyes, wearing a simple wool sweater that smelled warmly of cinnamon. When I reached out to shake her hand, apologizing for the stains on my skin, her grip was firm, and she did not wipe her palm afterward. We ate a humble dinner of steaming beef stew right there on the greasy workbench, surrounded by rusted tools. Julian laughed that night. It was not the polite, calculated chuckle he used at high-end galas, but a deep, resonant sound that echoed beautifully off the cinder-block walls. He looked at Clara the exact way a freezing man looks at a warm hearth after a long journey in the snow. I am 64 years old. I have spent my entire life fixing broken machines, foolishly believing that I could somehow fix people the exact same way. I thought that if I just kept pouring my own fuel into my son's tank, he would eventually find his way. But love is not an act of extraction. It is not bleeding yourself dry to fund an illusion. Love is an act of creation. It requires solid ground, hard, uncomfortable truths, and the terrifying willingness to let things shatter so they can be put back together properly. The 1968 Mustang is almost finished. The chrome bumpers shine brilliantly under the halogen lights, and the rebuilt engine purrs with a deep, rhythmic heartbeat. Julian comes by every Tuesday and Sunday now. We are rebuilding the interior together, stitching the heavy leather seats by hand. It takes time. It is exhausting, incredibly messy, and painfully slow work. But as I watch my son tighten a heavy steel bolt, his hands finally stained with the exact same dark grease that covers mine, I know we are no longer building an illusion. We are building something real, and this time it is built to last.